Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's 12 days of exam revision, we're looking at our third day. So welcome back and let's get started. Right, well, on the third day, my DT teacher sent to me 3 classifications of lever. Now, of course, we already know, if you didn't, here it is. A lever is a device. Let's get my little pointer on. A lever is a device used to transmit and transform the effects of forces. There are 3 parts to a lever, not to distinguish the difference between the classification, but we have the effort, number 1, which is the force being used on the lever, often shown as an arrow or a direction in where the force is being applied. We have number 2, which is our fulcrum, which is a key term there. We need to revise that. We need to remember that name, the fulcrum. But it's basically called a pivot point. So you might recognise, oh, I know what a pivot point is, sir. Well, the technical term for that is a fulcrum. And the point where the lever acts, and we often show that in a diagram as a triangle. And then number 3 is the load, which is always the force or the weight being moved, and we show that with a square. So let's start with the classifications of levers then, ladies and gentlemen. We have class 1, which is probably the most straightforward of the classifications of lever. It's the seesaw style, so if we bring a seesaw in, there we go. We can see here we have our fulcrum in the centre. Now this is how I know it's the first order of classification, because the fulcrum is right bang in the middle, and as we can see here, the pivot point is this centre area where the effort and the force and the load are going to interact around the opposite sides. So we can see here we've got an effort coming down onto our lever here, which is coming down here with a child or person sat there, which is going to raise the load, which is in this case it would be another child or another person. So the load's being raised there on the opposite side. That's classification 1. So that's the first class of lever. So often they'll show you a picture of this. What classification of lever is that? And you'll go, oh god, that's a class 1 lever, so because the fulcrum's in the middle. Now my quick tip is you'll either get the effort on either end. You can get the effort coming across in here, across the middle, across the bottom. But I'd like to remember where the fulcrum's going because it's easier to remember where that is. So for me, so I tell students to be aware of the fulcrum. So class 2 then. The fulcrum's moved to the end. It could be on this end or it could be on that end. It doesn't matter because we're paying attention to where the fulcrum is compared to the load. So if the load's next to the fulcrum, then we know it's class 2. So I know that even if it was the other way around and my fulcrum was here and my load's there, it's still going to be a class 2 lever. And a good example of that would be like a wheelbarrow. So think about how that's going to work. Here's our pivot point. So like I've done here, I've switched on purpose to show you that the fulcrum's there now on the end. The load's in the middle and the effort's here where I pick it up or push it down. Same here, so I could have my wheel there. There's my load and my flowers, and then here's my effort. So a wheelbarrow is a good example of a class 2 lever. So that's how we'd remember that. So fulcrum next to my load means I'm going to have a class 2 lever, or of course if the fulcrum's in the middle, it's going to be of course a class 1 type of lever. Don't forget that. And revise that down. Let's have a look at class 3 there. No, that's a picture of me. Just at the gym, you know, pumping the iron. Yeah, that's definitely not a picture of me. Anyway, class 3. So fulcrum again on the other end, but it's not next to the load this time. Even if I switched it to there, the load would have to go on the opposite side, meaning that I can't have a class 2 lever. But here we have our class 3. So our fulcrum is in the middle, our effort is in the middle, and then the load's on the end. Here we have our load, where our pivot point is our elbow. Of course, naturally, our arm pivots on the elbow. The load's at the end here. And of course we're exerting a force, we're going to try and bring that up, so or in this case down to bring it back up again. So load, effort, pivot point, load, effort, pivot point. So my load's there, I'm pulling up on the pivot point where my elbow is, like that. This is really one of those where you're going to have to show people. So my load's in my hand, I'm moving my arm here, this is my arm's moving in this direction, and then the pivot point's below it. So it's subtle because they're all so close together, all on the same line. But that's how we identify the classification 3 type of lever. So there you go, ladies and gents. That's the third day of DT. and that's what I sent to you today. So let's go back to home base. What have we done in today's session? Well, on the third day of DT, my teacher sent to me the 3 classifications of lever. And we've learnt to identify all 3 classes, so we should be able to tell the difference between class 1, class 2 and class 3. And if you need to, feel free to pause the video at any time so that you can do some notes and make a revision card. That's what I'll be wanting you to do in this session. Build a revision card that shows us the difference between class 1, class 2 and class 3 so that you can identify what they're going to look like. Okay, till the next one, stay safe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Bye now.